All right, thanks so much for that, Anthony. Still with us, Marni Jo Snyder. Marni, let's talk about Scott Peterson. So you just heard that in the top crime story. He's trying to appeal being on death row. Basically, he's saying his defense attorney was inept in defending him. What say you about that?
Well, it's a little bit strange. So this was a long time ago that this case was kind of pressed into our minds,
right,
and it's been a long time since then. In order for his petition to be considered, he's going to have to show that this was not a mistake that he knew of during the trial, right? That it's not something that's just taken out of the transcripts, because then that's something that should have been argued a long time ago. And the system gives us some finality in sentencing. So I really want to find out what he found that he believes makes his trial counsel ineffective.
Yeah, well, there were a few things he brought up here, and, you know, I'll read it. He talked about the burglary evidence. Of course, there were two guys that said they broke into a home directly across the street. He also mentioned something about the dog scent expert was not put on the stand. So I guess from that regard, isn't that a reasonable defense to say, hey, you didn't even call all your experts to this trial? Well,
sort of, but that's the kind of thing that I mean is, like, those things Scott Peterson knew of or should have known of at the time. And so he could have alleged this ineffectiveness much earlier. So I wonder whether the court is going to hear him now as to why he didn't raise this before. If an expert was consulted back then, and he knew that expert was consulted, he could have argued that earlier on. And if those burglaries could have been known, it's going to be hard to prove that he's allowed to raise it now this many years later.
Right. Marni Jo, stay with us. We have a new segment called Law and Mediate. Take a look. Okay, so that was more of the prosecution's opening statements in the Denise Williams trial. Still with me, Marni Jo Snyder. Marni, we heard him talk about how extensive this search was. You know, he said for 2 weeks, every day they went out there, they had the dogs. Of course, they had personnel out there. This was very expensive. From a financial standpoint, man-hour standpoint. And one of the things that I want to point out here is the fact that the weather, I think, actually affected it in so many ways, just because, you know, you can't have dogs out there that long in the weather. You definitely can't be out there yourself that long. But let me ask this. Let me switch gears and ask this question. Do you think that since investigators looked at this initially as someone that had a boating accident, that it took so long for this investigation to come to where it is right now?
I mean, I think that they're going to want to show that they were misled into thinking that he was missing when these two devious people knew what had happened. And so they want to use that angle and also the way that they acted during this long search and hard search to kind of help prove their case, to help prove that they're guilty. I don't know that, I think that they're going to defend how extensive their search was in that way.
Yeah, I definitely think they will. I mean, that's exactly what they were told, was it was this horrible boating accident. But let's get to his mother here, because, you know, for so many years people said he was eaten by alligators. She went out, she actually paid for her own experts in alligator lifestyle, and who said, hey, listen, at that time of the year, alligators don't feed, they actually hide their food, kind of like a dog hides its bone. And one expert actually told the mother, hey, listen, they wouldn't eat an entire human body. There would be some body parts there. So do you think, without the diligence of this mother, do you think this case would ever be solved? Or do you think investigators would have said, hey, it's just a simple boating accident, he was eaten by alligators, and it's a closed case?
No, I think it's the mother's love and her advocacy that helped to get us here for trial. And then also the what seems to be a coincidence of the co-defendant getting picked up on another charge and cooperating. But I think had the mother not been such an advocate for her son and for closure, we wouldn't be here. Yeah,
absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Marni Jo, I want to thank you for joining us. I know you have to sign off. We greatly appreciate you. Always a pleasure seeing you here on the Law and Crime Network.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, always a pleasure. We're going to take a quick break. We have so much more to come right on the other side. Stay tuned.